Hello, team. It's time for the Daily Detangler. All right. Hello. It's time for talking about change. I am going to spend some more time on the idea and concept of detangling this week and tangles. And I was working on those, and I thought as I was going through building the detangler that I needed to kind of make sure I was centering myself on kind of the backdrop of why detangling. And to do that, I'm going to lean into the concept of constant change and think about and talk about my own journey as it relates to this idea of constant change, and then my response to it and some of the actions that I've seen work. So this is a simple definition of change from a project manager's perspective. You propose a change, you define the impact of the change, you decide on the change, you make the change, and you close, and you go on to the next change and the next change and the next change. What strikes you about this list? Well, for me, what jumped out at me now after I've kind of explored this concept is, it's that Mark Twain quote: "It ain't what I don't know that gets me into trouble. It's what I know for sure that just ain't so." The idea of change in this lens here assumes that change is a series of rolling projects or activities, that there's a start and a stop to change, and change can be controlled. And in fact, there's a whole kind of body of knowledge around controlling change and treating change as an initiative and an event. And one of the things that I remember working with Catalyst on when we were at Forrester was really the concept of change as a discipline, and change being constant and not just a project to be managed. And that's why the elephant always made sense to me. And I like the going back to the roots here. I know we have our updated version of this, but when I look at the elephant trying to cross the bridge, trying to let go of the old way, the status quo, and get across to sunnier days, and trying to walk this rickety bridge. This can't really just be project managed. I mean, if I could have turned it into a project and done it, I would have done that already. There's something else afoot here, no pun intended. And what is that, right? Like, if I could just list the aspects of change and check them off and be over to the other side, I would just do that. But what's holding me back? What's making it a little bit harder for me? Or what things have I learned in trying to break free from the holding onto the post and walking across the bridge? And what is that? And when I thought about it, I went back to the conundrum on VUCA and why we need an approach to VUCA. And that was conundrum number 3. And Catalyst had this slide in, and he used VUCA as a way to explain kind of individual responses to change. And the individual response to change is something that I consider, worth exploring, but 2, something that I've been passionate about as I've been building these detanglers is what have I been learning about going through VUCA? And then also, what if VUCA never goes away and it's not just a one-time thing, but it's the new, quote unquote, new normal? So that means uncertainty is never going to go away. Volatility will never go away. Complexity will never go away, and ambiguity will never go away. So how do I embrace that? And because of that, through our discussions about change, change isn't just a project to be managed. And in this context of VUCA, change is constant. It's every day, it's every minute, it's every hour of every day and week. And so when I look at kind of the overall view of how maybe people that I bump into respond to change, I'm borrowing this from some of my past exploration of change, and this idea that kind of a group of people will latch onto it and be enthusiastic about change. And I would say that that's not me. And then there's going to be followers of the change. And we've talked about the idea of the first follower. And I think I'm a little bit more there, trying to help things along. Then there's objectors to change. And then there's fence sitters that are kind of wait and see. And one of the things that I find interesting about this is because change is constant and change is ongoing, what am I enthusiastic about? What am I objecting about? And where am I a fence sitter? And there are a lot of topics. There are a lot of things. For example, just the change journey itself. I'm pretty enthusiastic about that, but the concept of letting go of the post, I have a hard time, and sometimes I object to even myself letting go of the post. So I can actually move around in this. It's not like I'm always enthusiastic about change or always a fence sitter or always an objector. It depends. So what is that? And that's really what, got this idea of kind of tangles off the ground is if change is constant and change cannot be managed as a project and change requires a human response and we're in a human business and everybody has these responses to change, yet they respond to that change based on the context and the situation. And at one minute they can be enthusiastic about something and then the next minute they can be a fence sitter about something else, but both are related to change. So what is that? And one of the things that I have been trying over the past week is trying to get the concept of, responding to this change a bit of a more of a bit of an identity around this idea of being tangled. If you're not responding to change and you're holding on to the post, as the elephant picture showed, what are you tangled about? And I'm trying to relate that idea of tangles and simplify it. And one of the things that I remember explaining to my team what I had back in the another organization was this idea that we really have to line up three things: our head, our heart, and our hands. And this is one of those things that I remember doing, but didn't. And I taught it kind of in my on my little all hands that I had with my 30 people. But it was this idea of share with authenticity where you're at, bring bring up what's bothering you and bring up what maybe is holding you back. Are we being clear and logical about why? And that's a head challenge. And then, are we being clear about what's in it for you? And are we leaning into your strengths so that you can apply yourself in this way? And that's the heart piece. And then from a hands perspective, because we're driving change, we have to create the future together. So what effort are you putting in? And this is what led me down the path of what kind of contribution are people making to the future state, and how do we help clarify that? So I was thinking about that in the context of change and simplifying tangles. And I said, well, maybe let me try to land tangles a little bit of a different way in the context of change created by VUCA and its constant. What would be some head tangles, heart tangles, and hand tangles? And I don't know if that's going to work, but I put this together. Head tangle is maybe not seeing the logic. A heart tangle is they're just not feeling it. There's just no emotion there. There's no energy in motion there, or it's negative. And then hand tangle is they're just gonna, they're not taking action. So I've had all three of these. I haven't seen the logic in some of the things we do. I haven't felt the emotion in some of the things we do, and I haven't taken the necessary action. The interesting thing about it that's frustrating lately has been I see the logic, I feel like I'm staying positive and I'm putting the emotion in, but I don't know what to actually do with my hands when I'm typing on the keyboard. What am I missing? So that's been my own journey. But as I've done over 100 of these tangles, I can say that I've had head and heart tangles throughout this too. So I'd like to see what you think about that as a concept of does that land, and then I can plot this out. So borrowing our principles, our expectations, learning by doing, our expectations that we have help me with my heart tangles. The principles we have help me with the head tangles, and then learning by doing help me with my hand tangles, and this idea of taking action and creating the right experience. And when I plot the 5 tangles out that I've been playing with, the focus tangles, the progress tangles, priority, confidence, and approach tangles, I see that 3 of these seem to fit pretty well. The priority challenge of why we're doing what we're doing, the confidence challenge of, do I have the emotion around this? Do I feel that I can do this? And then kind of the hand, you know, approach here is the hand side of it. The capability piece of it is, am I taking the right approach? So 3 of these really fit on here, and then that leaves these other 2, focus and progress, as perhaps something to be tweaked, and or not. Maybe these relate pretty well to me, and I can try to fit some of these under here. So when I look at just to try to move forward here, and I'm pretty excited about this concept, but when I look at what is change, and I look at the concept of being tangled up in the change, one of the things that I've come to recognize in untangling my heart, head, and hands knots and tangles is, I can do 2 things. I can understand and work through this and try to figure out what these tangles are, and I can look at these knots here, and I can try to figure out how to undo all those. And I could do that by observing, I could do that by asking questions, etc. One of the things that's interesting about this is, the best way to take this apart is actually find the loose end, here, and start untangling it one by one, and very patiently work it through. I can't detangle the whole entire thing all at once. I have to start with the loose end. And I think that's the big takeaway for me in dealing with change is, what is my loose end? And it's been interesting because the loose end for me has bounced around across the different aspects, because we're in a VUCA environment. I'm getting VUCA'd myself. So what is my loose end? And then can I start working this out? If I try to tackle all of this at once, it's actually impossible, which relates to real life. I mean, Christmas lights. I don't know if you've ever tried to detangle an entire box of Christmas lights all at once, but pretty much the only way to do that is to find one end and kind of work it through. So that's the concept here that applies to detangling, is what can I help people detangle one thread at a time? Is it a heart thread, a hand thread, a head thread, right? And the other flip side of that is, well, what's in the box? What's in the box? Is it Christmas lights? Is it wires? Is it rope? What is it? And this chart, always I go back to, it's in my synthesis digest, and I say, where are we playing here? What's in the box? And the thing about this is that it applies to the concept of detangling the knots for me, is understanding what the whole thing looks like, but then taking action. And the action piece, right? I'm acting and I'm doing to learn, right? I'm doing the doing, and therefore I learn. Is as I shared on a detangler about a week and a half ago. That's completely different than learning and studying this thing and really immersing myself in what that is, as opposed to trying to figure out how to take action on the loose end. And the action is what reveals the path forward to detangle myself. An example of this was, today on this detangler, was really kind of stuck. Like, I don't know. I just probably that's how I dug up this heart, hands, and head thing, is because I felt like I was losing my energy. I felt like I didn't have the logic figured out, because a lot has been going on, and I was trying to figure things out. And then, I wasn't tracking on, where do I plug in? Should I plug in under messenger audience? All kinds of stuff. And so I just had to detangle myself. What is my headspace? Um, I talked to Catalyst last week. Let me go back and do some toast and write down what we talked about so I can get my logic right. And then when I did this detangler, I had to take action. And it was actually more energizing to take action than it was to sit around and think about all the things I didn't know. And that's the idea of, to me, this idea of focusing on the experience. It's experience stupid, and kind of leaning into my own inner conflict of where my own knots are, what's going on in my head, and get my head straight. And how do I think through my logic, and what do I anchor into? And then, how do I actually put my fingers on the keyboard and take action? And that's how I did this detangler. So I'd love your feedback on kind of the head, heart, hands construct of knots and tangles, and see if that makes sense, as I'm trying to simplify that concept in the face of constant change. All right, talk to you later. Take care.